Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Elementary. So this week's episode was a very interesting episode because there was a gang member named Ricky that was killed, and it turns out, based on the description and because of a necklace that was found at the crime scene, it seems that Shinwell was kind of involved. Now, whether he's the killer or not, it's hard to say, but definitely, everything's kind of leaning to like, hey, he was there. Sherlock is quick to be like, yeah, so do you want to constantly asking Joan, does she really want to defend him? Because she's willing to give him the benefit of doubt. I really don't like when she brought up what Shinwell did. Sherlock was kind of like, wait, what? Okay, so I guess I got to go back. I'm going to talk to the detective about this. She's like, no, don't do that. He's like, what? He's like, he wasn't going to hurt me. He's like, what? He's like 170 pounds. He could have hurt you. It's like, you see that instinct, like, kind of like, whoa, wait, what? He threatened you. Why didn't you tell me? Okay, we need to nip this in the butt. It's like, it's so interesting because it's like he almost kind of went in protective mode, and I thought that was kind of neat. Because like I said before, like, I knew Joan saw through it. She is a smart whip, so she knew that he was just doing that, trying to push her away, and she doesn't believe Shinwell was involved in this, and Sherlock being very protective, like, it's like, all right, so if you feel that way, I guess we're just going to have a face-to-face with Shinwell to kind of get an answer to it. And it's just kind of like, I really like the twist of it all being like, okay, because at the beginning, I cannot remember the actor's name, but he's the actor who played Tommy from Haven. Every time I see him, I'm like, Tommy! Just because of season 3 of Haven. But nevertheless, what I just found interesting was, like, we find out, like, okay, Shinwell was involved to a certain extent, but they got the wrong narrative, because apparently Shinwell is an FBI informant. He has been for a little while, and that basically the guy that we saw, Tommy, is actually an FBI agent named Whitlock, and basically the gun is something that he had basically given Shinwell because it was like, well, originally someone else in the gang had given it to him. Shinwell wanted to give it to Whitlock, but Whitlock was like, nah, you keep it because it'd be less suspicious. And it was just kind of like, because I was on this, I was like, oh man, Whitlock is from the SBK, the old gang he used to be a part of. I was like, oh man, but it's like, no, it's an FBI agent was being low key and everything. But then, like, it's like, oh man, I'm screwed in this department. It's like, obviously I didn't kill Ricky, but it's like everyone's gonna think I was because I threw away the gun I had into the drain. And it turned, well, not drain. I don't remember if he threw it in a drain, but nevertheless, he threw it away. And it's like his prints are all over it. Granted, they have a little leeway with it because the detective talks about the fact is that the facility, they run prints and stuff like that. There was an asbestos problem, so they're kind of backlogged a little bit. So about 72 hours. So they have to try and prove Shinwell's innocence before then. Joan ends up talking to Whitlock, which Whitlock's like, yeah, it's all true. But then Whitlock was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to deny anything you throw my way. He's like, wait, what? Yeah, Shinwell's on his own. It's like, what are you talking about? You put him in this position. You literally offered him a job. Well, because apparently Whitlock doesn't have the clearance to do what he did. Because apparently he's done a similar circumstance, obviously situation before where, like, a similar person to Shinwell, kind of a gang-related dude, was kind of his informant. Well, it turns out this informant was playing him and kind of using him, and at the same time wiping out, killing people, dealing with the competition and stuff like that. And it was just, Whitlock finding out, beat the crap out of this this informant, was in the hospital, talked to Whitlock's bosses, kind of made another deal. And essentially Whitlock lost his kind of, his little leeway, so he didn't have the clearance to do what he's doing. So everything he's doing with Shinwell is actually off the books. And it gets even more interesting when you end up finding out that actually him and Ricky actually had the same deal, because Ricky, interestingly enough, was going to therapy. Even Sherlock kind of commented on a gang member going to therapy. That's a little weird. That's kind of a first. Never heard that before. But apparently he was having panic attacks. And, well, quick side note, I love that the fact is that the actress who plays the doctor is Kate from The Blacklist. I was like, Kate! Nevertheless, I get giddy like that when I recognize actors from stuff. I'm like, I don't know your real name, but I will refer to you as a character from the respective show that I know you from. Like just the same thing with Tommy's, so it's kind of interesting. Also, side note, this episode was actually directed by the Aidan Quinn, the actor who plays Captain Gregson, which is, I don't know if he's probably directed other episodes before, but it was just like, maybe he has, maybe he hasn't, maybe this is his first time, but it was kind of interesting because it was like, if it wasn't the first time, it's the first time I caught notice of it. I always think it's really interesting when actors of a particular show direct the show. I'll just say, I don't know, just to me, that's just the coolest thing, because it's like, oh, it kind of shows like people are kind of like trusting you. It's because, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, all the groundwork is already laid out, especially when there's a show like this that's been around for a little while. It's like these people have kind of gotten to know each other over the past 5 years. They spend time together, they work together, they're kind of like a little family. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, the groundwork is already there. You just have to have someone kind of be like, okay, like give them a little more direction in the episode. But it's like, it's a little easier. I'm sure it's got to be weird when you get direction from someone like one of your co-stars. It's a little weird seeing them in the director's seat. Granted, he did, because I mean, I guess maybe he didn't feel like doing that, directing himself. Because I always say that's interesting when the person directing the episode is also in the episode, but he didn't pop up in the episode at all. So I thought that was a kind of, I mean, so I guess that was kind of a little, I guess he felt like since he was directing, maybe he didn't feel, I know I'm getting all technical about it. It's just an interesting thing when you actually think about it in the long run. But nevertheless, the thing, getting back to it, Ricky was having panic attacks. Not because it's like, oh, it's not because he felt, bad because like, oh man, they're going to catch me about me informing. It's like, no, he had panic attacks because he felt guilty about informing on them. It's like, that's kind of messed up. I mean, really, he's only in this circumstance because he got caught with like a kilo of cocaine or some drugs or whatever. And it's like, it's a situation, because it's something Shinwell kind of brings up in the episode. It's like, to them, in their respective cases, they looked at their gangs as family. And like Shinwell, he went to jail for like 10 years for that family. He wouldn't rat on them. And it's like, even back then, like, they offered him a deal, like, to get like half his sentence cut off if he like wore a wire, and he wouldn't do it because he wasn't going to turn on his family. But something interesting happened to him, because when he was part of that world, they gave him everything he couldn't get on his own, you know, that prestige, that power that, you know, Sherlock's kind of talked about in the past. But then you see the circumstances of, like, the fact is he brought in people into the gang too, kind of took people under his wing, kind of showed them the rope and everything. But when he was locked up, he saw those same very people that he kind of recruited in there, along with the people they recruited, and so on and so forth. So it just kind of almost seemed like it wasn't worthwhile in the end, because it was like almost like they, in a sense, they take care of themselves. Like the SBK look out for other SBK, but at the same time, it's like, it doesn't change the fact that it's like, yeah, all these people, yeah, the gang is safe because no one's ratting on them, but it's like all these members, all these people giving up their lives, and it's like nothing's really being done for them, because it's like, even in Shinwell's case, it's not like he was really being looked after. I mean, because more so than anything, because it's like you don't really reap the benefits of, you know, that loyalty, that to that family that you so wholeheartedly believe in, and it's like, that's how I view it, at least. Because, but I mean, there's more downside than there is good side. The downside is if you turn on them, they'll hurt you and everyone that you care about. And in Shinwell's case, he has family to be concerned about, especially like a daughter. And to me, I look at it as like Shinwell looked at this as an opportunity, really just trying to do good. Because that's what Sherlock was questioning, is like, why all of a sudden you literally got out of jail not too long ago and you just steadfast run straight towards destroying the people you thought of as a family. And I guess for Shinwell, it's because he wanted to do something right in his life. No matter what the circumstances may be, he wanted to do some good because he wants to do the right thing, and he wants to make his little girl proud of him, I guess. You know, he wants to do something that she can be proud of, where he can be like, I took down these very, very bad people. Because the only reason why Shinwell was there in the crime scene in the first place is because Ricky's body was dropped on SBK territory, and he was trying, like him and I think it was, yeah, Tallboy was with them, and they were there trying to dispose of the body, but that's why they were there an hour later. To me, I was thinking, because Witlock was kind of, it turns out that Whitlock was behind all of it, because it was like, apparently he'd use his informants. He takes someone like Ricky and Shinwell. He learned about the routes that the other gangs, he'd use that intel about the routes that these certain gangs would take for, like, when they're getting money from their particular money launderers in Ricky's case, and he ended up robbing them. The gang's just thinking they got hit, but they're not realizing, like, oh, the person that hit them was an FBI agent. Not just him, there was some other people along with him. One of them got caught. I think the other one was never really revealed. I mean, not revealed, but eventually they were caught. Me being the pessimist I am, just because I don't trust anyone, I kept thinking like, oh yeah, it's going to be the detective. It's like, oh, they're going to think it's Whitlock, but it's actually going to be the detective they've talked to multiple times. Oh, it actually is Whitlock. Oh, but the detective's connected to it isn't. Oh, no, she's not. Okay. Just because I'm suspicious of everyone, because I'm like, yeah, you popped up. I could also learn that actress's name, the one who played that detective. I see her in stuff from time to time, and I always feel bad when I don't learn actors' names, especially when I see them from time to time and stuff. She's one of those cases, so. But nevertheless, Whitlock did kind of like, when Joan kind of called him out, she called him, he called her almost immediately. She's like, wow, that was fast. He's like, yo, I was actually a good cop at one point in time. Like 99% of what I do, I'm doing the right thing. I'm putting away bad guys. And it's like, just, there was a little bit taken off the top here and there, but it's like, what was the harm in that? It's like, I'm taking from bad guys. It's like, I mean, truth be told, like, you can understand that mentality, but at the same time, it's like that doesn't justify what you're doing. You know what you're doing is wrong. You just chose to because it's like you kind of got caught up in it. It's like, because the fact of the matter is, you could talk about all the good stuff you done. I've been a good cop 99% of the time. It doesn't change the fact is that 1% of you not being a good cop damage the rest of it taints everything else you do, because it's like, for them, it's like, it's not about like, oh, he was such a good cop here and there, he was a good FBI agent. It's like, no, the thing people remember you for is the crappy stuff you done. The fact is you murdered someone, try to frame another gang for it. The fact is that you were robbing and stealing from gangs. That's what really shines through when people remember him. But kind of dealing with the guilt of it all, he was like, you know what, I'm going to leave the gun behind because well, no, I'm not going to do that. Nevertheless, he's like, so that way it was me who killed Ricky, but I'm not going to put myself out there to be like, hey, Shinwell was acting on my behalf. His reasoning for it is because, like, yeah, Shinwell's a banger. It's like, he's not worth the trouble of trying to save. It's like, eventually he'll go down that path. He'll do something again that kind of causes him to kind of slip down that path. So it's not worth saving. He's not worth saving. So I'm doing you the favor by not doing this. And then proceeds to kill himself, it went down differently than I saw him staring out the window. I was like, okay, Joan is going to hear him jump through the window. And it's like, pow! I was like, oh, he shot himself. I kind of figured that's where it was leaning towards, but I was thinking he was just going to jump out the window because of that whole situation. But it's like, because there was no way out of it, because with everything said and done, it's like the evidence was there. He was going to go to jail. And as Joan pointed out, not only are you a cop going to jail, you're also a cop that screwed over gangs, and I'm sure those particular gang members that are in prison aren't going to like the fact is that you're in prison, especially when they find out what you did. So I don't know, it's so interesting how it works like that. Like, you can start off like there's always that mentality of like, oh, I just taking a little bit off the top. It's like, what's a little wrong compared to all the right I do? But it's like, once you start scaling it like that, you're kind of already lost. Always kind of like throwing the scales. It's like, no, I've done all this good stuff in my life. I can throw a little bad stuff in there. It'll be okay. Even if it's a lot of bad, it's like, it balances out the good I do. Like I said, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that, sadly. And, I was hoping at the very least he would be like, okay, I'll help out Shinwell, because it's like, you put him in that situation in the first place. But he's kind of got that mentality of, once you're a bad guy, you're always a bad guy. Just because he had that bad experience with that particular, well, not just that particular gang member, the one that kind of played him, but also because it's just like, he spent so much time in that world, I guess, looking at it, it just kind of like is like, oh, he's seen them as the way they are. So it's kind of like, I guess in his mind, he looks at them as like animals that just need to be locked away in cages, essentially. So, but Shinwell just kind of accepted it. You had Joan, you even had Sherlock being there, like, no, we'll try to help you out. He's like, nah, I'm gonna try and spend this last time I have left doing something good. I thought he was gonna try and spend time with his daughter, but then again, he is kind of supposed to keep his distance and everything. So of course he's not gonna, drug up like that and cause her problems. What it did interestingly happen. I love the fact that Sherlock is like, yeah, he's looking through all of Bell's files, and Bell's like, okay, why are you? He's like, yeah, I've been gone for like 48 hours. I had to make sure you guys, check your, your case and stuff like that. Oh, he's like, yeah, right. Oh yeah, of course we noticed that you weren't here. It's like, oh, everyone in office knows. It's like, oh man, it's like, how do we function without you, Sherlock? It's not like we were cops before you even popped up here. We know how to do our job. But then Sherlock asked him a very interesting question. His brother, played by it's Malcolm Goodwin, right? He's the actor that plays Clive on iZombie. But I do like, his brother is an ex-con himself, and he's asking the questions like, how is your brother? Like, essentially asking the question, kind of mirroring Shinwell's circumstance of like, what do you think that your brother would go back to being a bad guy? Because your brother is in a good situation right now. He's like, yeah, my brother's doing a good job. He's living a good life. And he's like, if your brother went to jail, not because he necessarily did anything, but because a mistake led him to be in that position where he had to go back to jail, do you think it would erase all his progress and he'd revert back to being the person he was? And sadly, Bell was like, yeah, like 10 seconds flat, my brother would end up going back to the person he was. Just because as I said, like no matter what happens, especially like like I said, it's kind of interesting how that parallel exists because it's like no matter how much good you do, once that bad seeps into your life, it kind of it doesn't matter how much good you've done, that scale, the balance will always just kind of lean more to the bad because that's what takes notice, that's what gets the most attention essentially. So it's like because it's like once you put all that effort into doing something good and just one little nail kind of just comes and blows the whole thing up, it causes you to kind of be like, you know what, fine, it's not even worth it. Being good, it's not even worth it because it's like, even when I was good, I made one simple mistake. And in Shinwell's case, he made that simple mistake by trying to do the right thing. So it's kind of like, if it had blown up in his face, what would have been a point? But Sherlock looking out for him, wipes the prints off the gun. It's like, okay, you've got your second chance. So kind of don't squander it. So that is the question. I'm very curious to see where they decide to take that. Will the story continue? Will we see more Shinwell's story? Because he was working to take down SBK. And even though Whitlock is going, I still think, for him, Shinwell, it's all about still doing that job he started. He needed to do some good because he wants to destroy this. I guess so no one else has to be in a situation like him, so that other families don't have to be destroyed, so that other people's lives don't have to be destroyed. They were like his family once, but he wants to take them down. So he's still in good with them, in particular Tallboy. And Tallboy is a lieutenant, and so we have yet to actually meet the top dog. So I'm sure that's going to play a role because he's still neck deep in that. So I'm sure he's going to try and do his best. Maybe he'll work with Captain Gregson and them, Sherlock and Watson to kind of work through that, to kind of take down, or maybe he works with that particular detective. There's just so many questions because that whole situation was off the books, and it's not like the FBI are really going to be like, oh, he's neck deep in this, oh, so we'll help him out. It's like, no, they like looked the other way when it came to Whitlock's other situation, so they're trying to look, especially because like the detective tried to talk to him, but Joan said like apparently like the moment she tried to talk to him, that FBI agent that was kind of his superior kind of like lawyered up, so they're kind of closing in the ranks in a situation like that because it kind of puts a bad spotlight on the FBI. It's kind of very interesting because it's kind of interesting how that works like that, because that's kind of the similar situation with Sherlock's brother, because wasn't Minecraft part of the wasn't he kind of, no, he was, right, like the NSA or something like that is what he was kind of mixed up with. So that's kind of, there's certain storylines I want to see come back, and I want to see his storyline come back. I want to see, because I really like the actor who plays his brother. One of the particular things I know him from is playing the Lizard, Dr. Connors from The Amazing Spider-Man. So, but I want to see more interaction between him and him and Sherlock, because I love their back and forth. He gets brought up sometimes in references and stuff like that, but it's like we haven't seen him since when it like season 2's finale that all went down. So I like, because there's certain cases where it's like that, and Kitty, I know those are storylines that won't pop up again, just because like Kitty's kind of on the run because she beat down the dude that serial rapist dude, the dude who assaulted her as well as many other women, so she's kind of on the run for that. Minecraft's like kind of a little bit of a witness protection kind of / working with the NSA because he's supposed to be dead type of thing. So plus Sherlock's dad's off running that cabal type of organization. So I'm very curious to see what they kind of do with it. This was a very good episode. I like what they're doing with Shinwell's story, and I'm very curious to see what else they do with it, where it leads us. How far is it going to get Sherlock and Joan mixed up in it is the question too. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.